This is a representation of my Obsidian vault that is full of notes on my projects made using two different tools, Graphify on the left and InfraNodus on the right. And if you use AI, then you know that knowledge graphs are very important to improve the quality of responses and insights you get. So in this video, I'm going to show you two different tools, Graphify on the left, InfraNodus on the right. I will compare how they work, what kind of insights they can produce, how you can use them, so that you can choose yourself which one is more interesting for you. To begin, I need to have a vault with my notes. I use Obsidian, but I open it in Cursor because it can have all these different plugins and I can use AI inside. And I have a folder that's called Projects with all the different projects I'm working on, including InfraNodus, but also some body work, the publishing house we have, and so on. And let's say I want to extract insights from it. So first of all, when I use InfraNodus, it's very simple because I can simply go on the projects folder, right-click, and then click InfraNodus Visualize as a Graph. I need to first install the plugin into Cursor. We also have a plugin for Obsidian Graph View. And then I have a visualization of the main topics in all of these different folders. So it gives me a really good overview of the main ideas inside and also shows me what are the gaps that I should work on, that I should connect, the blind spots in my thinking. And in fact, Graphify is supposed to be doing the same, but as you can see, the graph that it produces is much more dense and it's quite hard to get insights from it. So normally the visualization is just for the looks. In fact, where it becomes very useful is when you start using it in terminal. So you open terminal in your Claude. If you have a vault where you launched Graphify, then you simply launch Claude, for instance, here. And if you have Graphify already installed, I'm going to show you how you can install it later. Now I'm just showing you how you use the both tools. Then you can ask Graphify, and then it will propose you different prompts that you can use to ask questions about it. The idea of Graphify is that once you have the graph, then it injects itself into your Claude interaction. So every time you ask a question, it's going to be able to actually traverse through the graph and find connections between different items. So it can be quite good if you want to extract responses that are not directly related to your questions, but you would like to somehow traverse the graph of your knowledge. And in fact, InfraNodus works exactly in the same way. So if you have InfraNodus running here in your Claude, then you can simply type in InfraNodus when you install the skill, and I'm going to show you how you can do that. And then InfraNodus can also be used the same way, but the advantage of InfraNodus is that the visualization that you get is much more readable. You can actually do things with it because, for example, if I look at Graphify, you see it's a very big structure, so it's only usable to the LLM itself. I can be asking questions about that structure and maybe I will get some interesting responses. I'm going to show you how I do that later. But if I have InfraNodus, I can simply point on a specific topic I'm interested. For instance, you see when I visualize the content of my folder, fractal networks is something that is important. I can simply send it to AI, and then InfraNodus extension itself will generate a response for me. So the graph becomes like a steering wheel for your AI to think better because you can direct it to the topics you're interested in, or you can also switch to gaps and then find the blind spots in your thinking directly, and they're visualized so you see what's happening under the hood. It's not like in Graphify where I will show you in terminal when it gives you an answer, it actually goes through a lot of Python code that it executes, so you will never know what's actually happening under the hood. You can of course read the transcript and then you will have an idea, but it will take you a lot of time. Here you actually see visually what's happening all the time and you can replicate all the insights yourself, so it's very good for observability and also knowing where the insights are coming from. Another advantage of InfraNodus is when you switch to the topical view, you have these insight clusters. These are the underdeveloped clusters that you need to focus on if you want to develop these ideas further. So you can select them all here. In this case, it's data, themes, memory dynamics, and AI insights. So some smaller ideas I've been thinking about, and then I can also send them to AI and then generate a question or an idea that will help me develop them further. If I like what I see, I can actually copy this question that is also a prompt, and then you see I can go back into my Claude and use this question to develop my thinking further in the direction that I'm interested in. So you can really take some ideas and insights that are generated from the plugin itself and put it back into Claude And you see here, it's actually using InfraNodus itself to get the responses from the graph. So it's really nicely integrated, and you can see what's actually happening. In Graphify, you would rather just go into option chat about this, and then you say, okay, I want you to tell me what I should be working on for maximum synergy, right? So for example, you can ask questions inside Claude. Then you will see it's going to traverse the graph. You see here it's making Graphify queries, so it uses Graphify that you installed on your computer. Then it traverses the graph that it saved here. You can actually see it visualized, but also we have the JSON file. And then it's going to provide you a response based on this traversal. So in fact, I have in my other terminal window an example of the kind of response it provided to me when I asked this question. So here I use Graphify in this terminal window, and then you see it identified that I'm thinking about InfraNodus. It's the tool I developed, and also the body practice variability that I'm interested in. And then it says, look, they're not connected, maybe you can connect them. It's quite an interesting insight, but it's also pretty obvious because I know I have these two different areas of work that I could link. So graph traversal helped Graphify, in this case, identify that there is two main basins, as it calls them, of the interests, and that probably they should be connected. But I know it already, and it doesn't really tell me how I could connect it. Whereas when I ran the same query in InfraNodus, and I have another video that I will link to where I explain how you can run queries using that InfraNodus skill, but basically here it provided me directly something I can focus on: fractal reset, habit as over-centralized network pattern, freedom as recovered variability across scale. So it's really linking my scientific concept into my thinking about the body and mind, but also uses networks that are also utilized in InfraNodus in order to connect all of these ideas together and to provide really interesting insight. And here it's also explaining to me how it did that. It's exactly talking about the gaps that it identified in the graph. So InfraNodus is very good in that. It kind of knows where it got the responses from, and then it tells you, why it came up with the insight that it came up with. So if you want more observability, InfraNodus can be pretty useful. But Graphify also provides nice responses. The problem with the Graphify, I find, is that it injects itself too aggressively into all the workflows I do in my repository. So if I could just switch it on and off, that would be great. But when you install it, it kind of installs itself and becomes an integral part of all your interactions with Claude. And I don't trust it this way. I would like to be able to choose, like I'm able here in InfraNodus, to actually ask InfraNodus, okay, how can I extract insights from these documents? And then it will use InfraNodus if I ask it to use it. So I find it better because I think Claude is pretty good already, and I want to use other tools only when I want to be using them, and also I want to see what's happening exactly like it's happening here. By the way, the good thing about combining Graphify and InfraNodus together is that when you use Graphify, you can actually visualize the graph that it produces, graph JSON, when you right-click it and then click Visualize as a graph, and then this JSON will be read and interpreted as a network, and then you can use the additional graph insights that InfraNodus provides because they're much more legible here, and you can see the main topical clusters, and also when you switch to the conceptual view, you can actually see which concepts are more important and less important. They will be bigger on the graph, which clusters they form. You can click on them and see in which context they are actually used. So you see every time you can actually see which connection was made and why it was made. So it's very good because you can actually read it much better, and then these structural insights is what allows InfraNodus to then tell you what the gaps are in your thinking, because based on these gaps and the influence of clusters and nodes, it can identify topics that could be of high interest to you. So you can actually combine both and use InfraNodus visualization plugin in order to visualize the content of the files that are produced by Graphify. Another difference between the two tools is that Graphify generates everything locally. So when you run it the first time, it's just going to generate graphs directly on your computer in your local folder. And so each time that you need to generate something or add something new, it's going to override it here. So it usually takes a long time, and you store everything locally. With InfraNodus, however, it just generates a manifest file where it tells you which folder or which projects or files it's saved into which graph in your account, right? And then each time you ask a question, it asks this question to the graph that is in the cloud in InfraNodus. So you don't need to store anything locally, but you can query it anytime. And the best thing about it is if you take this graph and you open it inside the actual browser, you can also navigate it using the InfraNodus web tool. There is also a mobile tool, and as you can see, it has many different functionalities. For instance, you can use the built-in AI mode to select different topics. For instance, ask this chat to elaborate on this topic. So this is a much more advanced interface than what you have in the plugin itself. So you can also use it in the web version, and you can also see the actual content that you're analyzing and so on. So it's much more advanced, and it's great because then you can kind of switch into this web interface or use your phone and then interact with your information, with your folder data through your phone or through the web. So that can be very useful. Now, I promised you that I would show you how to set both up. So it's actually pretty simple, but it's easier a little bit with InfraNodus than with Graphify. So to install Graphify, you would need to run this command in your terminal, and then what happens is that it installs a Python version of itself on your computer. Then you run Graphify install, which adds the skill of Graphify into your Claude globally. And then when you're in Claude, then you would launch Graphify, and then Graphify would basically ask you questions on what it can do when you want to analyze something. It's going to see that, okay, in this folder, there's maybe nothing set up yet. In my case, I have already something set up, and then it will analyze what it already has and propose me to analyze different folders or to provide responses to the already existing folders. So it's pretty easy, but the problem is that you install a whole application on your computer. It's going to run on your computer, and also it's going to inject itself quite aggressively into every workflow you have in your project or in your Claude, because it will always try to use Graphify, because it basically gives it an instruction to do so in the Claude file and also in the manifest file. So if you want to get rid of it, you would have to really edit the Claude file and manifest and kind of like do some manual editing so that Graphify doesn't always inject itself. With InfraNodus, it's easier to install it. You simply go to Tools and then Claude Skills, and then you can go to the Knowledge Graph skill. And here it gives you an instruction on what you need to do, but basically all you need is to have an account, and then you just install the InfraNodus skill, which you can download from GitHub and then upload in your Claude, or if you use Claude Code, you simply go into your skills folder, then you unzip the InfraNodus skill from the releases that we have here, and you unzip it, and then when you relaunch Claude, it's ready. So you just install the skill only, okay? And then once you install the skill, then when you use your Claude, it's going to be available here. So exactly the same way, when I launch Claude, I will simply type in InfraNodus/InfraNodus, and then it's going to ask me questions about what needs to be done. So in that way, it works in quite a similar manner to Graphify. If you would like a complete video on how to install this InfraNodus skill, I have another one that I will link to in the description, and I will also link to it above. You can watch this video. It has step-by-step explanations, so you would be able to do that. Once you launch the skill, it's going to ask you what you should graph, a folder or a whole vault, or maybe also query one of the existing graphs, refresh the project graphs and so on, the existing ones. I recommend you to graph folder by folder, because you don't want a graph of the whole vault. If you have your vault already organized, I would start with the graphs for each folder, because then you would have these contexts separated. But the advantage is that later you can connect them together, because you can query one graph and then another graph. These are two different projects, for instance, and then you can combine them together. You will have more granular control of what's happening. So that would be how it works. And if you would like to have this visualization engine, then all you need to do is to open your Obsidian Vault in Cursor, and then go to extensions, type in InfraNodus, and it will find the InfraNodus GraphView extension here. You install it, and then you can start using it straight away when you provide the API key. By the way, you can also use it in Obsidian, but in Obsidian there is not such a good AI integration, so this is why I actually prefer to use it inside something like Cursor or VS Code. So I hope you find this video interesting. Let me know what you think about Graphify, InfraNodus, if you've used any of these tools together, if you have any questions, comments, feedback, what your workflows are. I would be very interested to hear, and I think also other people who watch this video would also really appreciate this. And also please subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet, because it will help support this content and also spread it among more people who are interested in similar stuff. Thank you.